Hello YouTube, this is Ready Set Exploit, and we're going to be doing Ollie from TryHackMe, which is a room where we cover a couple vulnerabilities such as SQL injection, password reuse, and improper file permissions. We use the SQL injection to write a malicious file on the web server, and then with this malicious file we gain an initial access to the machine via remote code execution. We then use a previous password we found to gain elevated privileges as another user, the user being Ollie. And finally, we find a bash script that we can write to that is being executed by root every 2 minutes in order to gain full access. So a very fun room. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. So first thing, I'm going to do something different here. And I have been doing that. I haven't done that lately, but I have been doing that again, especially with TryHackMe rooms. Because nmap tends to sometimes run a bit slow, especially if you're doing like a full scan. So if we get the IP address and we do like -b to get verbose output -sb to enumerate version -sc to run default script -on to save it to a file. It could be any file. Just I'm not gonna run it. Call it nmap.txt. Now we put the IP address. And we do -b. I like to do -b because it scans all ports, but sometimes it could take a while. And if you're running for bloods, or you just don't want to waste like 10 minutes just looking for all ports, especially if there are other ports to scan, oftentimes what I do is I do a quick scan with min rate set to 10,000, then the IP address, and then I do -b. And the reason why I do that, because this will find, will tell me what ports I'm looking to. So I see that we have 3 ports open. It doesn't give me a lot of info. So then what we're gonna do, I'm gonna make a directory called nmap. Let's go to that directory. And now I can call this nmap2. cd nmap, and now I'll show you what I mean. So if I do the same scan again, call this port 22 and 80 text. So I'm not going to do a full port scan here, and it scans those, and then I'm going to do scan here. I'm going to do port 1337, and I'm just going to focus on port 1337. And that'll do that scan, and doing it like this will be considerably quicker. Now, of course, if you're dealing with a lot of ports, you can still do this and then just focus on any remaining ports. But at that point it'll just be too non-efficient, because nmap does allow you to scan at least more than one port. In this case, it's kind of worked out, and I have port 22 running OpenSSH, and then port 80 running Apache. It does give us a robots.txt file, and yeah, so a lot of good information. This is still doing port 1337. If you do a full port scan, then it would have taken it considerably longer, which is why I kind of wanted to run separate. So now, for now, we can just focus on the web server. So let's take a look. And we're greeted by a login page, Ollie, our username and password. And if we zoom in real close, we see this running PHP IPAM IP address management version 1.4.5. Always a good idea to look at the source, see if we find anything useful. In this case, we don't really find anything, but it's always a good habit. Always a good habit, because you never know what comments may be sticking out that were forgot to be deleted. So before I do anything, whenever I get a version information, I always like to look at it really quick. 1.4.5, we do exploits, because then maybe that could give me an idea of what to look for. And we do get a hit for 1.4.4 SQL injections. So this site right here, Fluid Attacks, this one does it pretty well. So it tells us that PHP IPAN version 1.4.4 allows an authenticated admin. So we have to be authenticated, then it gives us the steps right here. So when it comes to versions that are very, very close, like 1.44, 1.45, because there isn't one for 1.45, it will, for example, it's always a good idea to try it. Now, if we look at the room description, which I don't have it up here, it says that Ollie has messed up the files on the server to ensure backwards compatibility. So even when you look at the room, the author tells you, that this definitely isn't running. Although it shows us the current version, there's part of it that's not being current. So even without knowing that, it's always good to try it because of that reason. You may not know it, but that could be the case. Certainly is the case in a lot of places. So it's something to look forward to. If we go back to our nmap, it finished scanning port 1337, and nmap tries to like fingerprint it. In this case, it still doesn't know what it is. But we do see that nmap can't try to communicate it, and the service responded. So what is your name? It's been a while, what are you here for? And then, so we see that we could probably communicate with it. Let's clear this. So we could save that port for after. Let's see, clear, we'll go back one directory. And there's not much we could do with nmap at the moment. And we'll keep that port 337 on the back burner. So now, do a little Gobuster, and just wanted to show something else. Gobuster won't show much to us, and yeah, let's do that. And we're gonna do, I'm actually gonna do the small list output go.text, and I'm gonna do, so Gobuster dir mode -u, the IP address, the URL. There we go. Extension, I'm going to do PHP, and then actually no extensions because it'll just take long. And then word list, I'm going to use the sec list directory list 2.3-small, save it to a file called go.text. So if we run it, actually let's give it some threads just to make it a little bit faster. We'll do 20. And oh, this is the one I was looking for actually. Perfect. So if we look at this page that Go finds, we find the change log, and then we see that it tells us is 1.4.5. It even says that the SQL injection has been fixed. But even with that, always good to try it, even when you are able to access the service, because you just never know, right? It doesn't take long usually to try something. Doesn't work, you move on. But anyway, I won't try it here. Usually I like trying credentials like admin password, but in this case our IP will get blocked for I think 5 minutes. That'll just be a waste of time. And in my experience, I like when my IP gets blocked, as long as it's for like a little bit of time, because it tells me don't brute force your way in. If it doesn't tell me, then sometimes I would try to brute force my way in, thinking that might be the way, and since it's just wasting time. You have to know when not to waste time. But in this case, I know a lot of people don't like when their IP gets blocked, but you should take it as a good sign, because that means no, don't waste your time brute forcing. So we won't waste our time brute forcing. So honestly, there's not much we can do with the page. We do find a lot of links, and you could go through these, but there isn't much to do. So we'll just kill that. So because port 20 didn't give us much, now we can look at port 1337. I'm lazy, I'm gonna copy this, delete all this one, and we're gonna use netcat for this. Didn't mean to delete that, and then we delete this, and we'll see what we get. And we get a message. It's like, hey stranger, I'm Ollie, protector of panels, lover of deer antlers. What is your name? Do RSC. What's up RSC? It's been a while. What are you here for? We could do, food. The first two questions, honestly, you could type anything. I think the only time it answers something different is when you say food. or anything related to food, I think. So it asks us a question: what breed of dog am I? And it'll make it a multiple choice question. We have bulldog, husky, dog, or wolf. And if you didn't know, on the room, when you go into the TryHackMe room, there's a picture of Ollie, and you could just Google what each of these three are. I happen to know what kind of dog it was, and just say what is a bulldog. Some people are just not familiar with dogs, and that's fine. You see that Ollie it's a bulldog. So if you type the wrong answer, it just asks you again, wolf. So it says nope. So we do bulldog. So you could brute force. I believe you can brute force these. Just keep answering until you get it. And then we get our credentials. So and that's it. That's all there is to the service. So like I said, you could type whatever, and it'll lead you to the same thing. So let's save these credentials. We have admin, our password, and now we can try logging in and see if that is what we needed to do. And it can take a little bit of time, but if the credentials are wrong, I believe it tells you right away, like the credentials are wrong. So we just have to wait. So now let's go back to that PHP IPAM SQL injection. While I wait to log in, it's in the top left, it's still trying. So right here, there's some exploit DB scripts that you can play around with. I'm actually gonna go through it manually, and we see what we did log in, and we get another picture of Ollie. So that's Ollie right there. That's a bulldog, and we have the dashboard, administrator dashboard. So we have this script that we can use, but I like the way this post did it, the fluid attacks, and basically tells us what to do. It says go to settings, enable routing mode. This is already enabled, but if you wanted to know, you go here, and I believe it's where is it? PHP IPAM settings, and I think it's around here. Request on routing module on. I'll make this bigger. So I went here, administrator setting, went to PHP IPAM settings, and all the way down here, routing module is on. So that's already on. So now we just go back. So if we're on the main page, you go to all tools, routing, and there's already one called this is the one. So I wonder if this was put by the author just to put it in the right way, the right path. But go to routing, add peer, you create a new BGP peer. We don't have to do that, it's already created. Click on the newly BGP peer, click actions, subnet mapping. So if we click on this one, we could have seen, if we go back, could have done it there. This one, it's already, it's already there, so why create a new one? Actions, subnet mapping, and then scroll down to map new subnet, and we can try this payload. And if you're not familiar with union injections, so this is the quote to start the injection that'll throw the error. Union select, and it's enumerating the columns on the table that the service is using to display this output. So in this case, we have it's one column where it's going to show the version of column 2, the user, and column 3, and column 4, and then comments to ignore everything after. So if you don't have 4 columns, the SQL injection will work. And this is for this particular case. Every service, if it's vulnerable to SQL injection, will show a different number of columns. So we click that, search, and we get a hit right here. So if we do test, it says no subnets found. If we just do a double quote, enter 2 characters. So if we do union select, and let's do 1. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I have a diff. So this is a SQL injection error, right? The U select and have different number of columns. So what I was trying to show you is let's just do 1, and we'll do 3. See, it tells us 1, 3, 4. So in this particular case, if we go to add version, 1, 3, and 4 show up. So we could do 1. So to show it easier, if I put add version on 2, it's not gonna show up. If I do anywhere 1, 2, 3, 4, I always like 1 if I can. It shows up. So we're running Ubuntu 8.028, Ubuntu 20.04. So pretty up to date. So now what do we do? From here, we're gonna do burp, fire burp up, and I'm gonna do the SQL injection manually. I think I'll show it on SQL map. Not the whole thing, but how you could have gone about it. But I'll decide as it goes. So we're going to, I usually like to capture the request. In this case, I'm going to just send it to the history. So I'm going to search again, minimize, HTTP history. I'm going to go to send this to repeater. And there we go. We have our payload here, and it's URL encoded. Control-Shift-U. There it is. So let's see. Next thing is we could enumerate the database, right? But I don't want to waste your time. There's nothing on the database. No extra credentials. It's just always good practice to do it if you want to look through it, because sometimes there is something. But in our case, when you can't enumerate the database anymore, the next thing to do is to see if you can read files, because you can read files with SQL injection. So we're going to do select group concat. I'm going to do these line breaks so that it reads a little bit easier, and I'm probably going to mess this up. Load file, and then the file we want. And what's a good file to try? Let's see, pass WD, and another 2 little line breaks, and that should be it. And always URL encoded, and if you did it right, there we go. Now if you notice with this, it gets cut off, and I think that's the same case for if you put it 3 or 4. Always good to give it a shot. And I don't know why I have a space there. So if you do it, and you see, it gets cut off, because this is not the whole size. So, so even if you were trying to fingerprint the database, you won't get all the results here. And that's where SQL map comes in handy, but I want to try to do it manually. So when I can read files, but I still can't find anything useful, the next thing I like to try to do is see if I can write files. So and that doesn't take long to do, but first we need to find out the base. I mean, where is the web server installed? Usually it's in bar www.html, but maybe it changed. So for that, we can look at Apache 2, because we know Apache is installed, sites available, and we can do 000 default.conf default.conf, and there we go. We don't get a lot, but we get the document root, which is bar www.html. I believe you can also, there's enabled. That one thing makes a little more sense, but it's the same. If they're different, then we try both, just in case. But usually I think enable is the one to do. Actually, yeah, they both work. So in this case, bar www.html. So actually no, yeah, enabled. So this is where our payload is going to be, and we can now focus on the write. So I'm going to call this read. We don't need any more, but I will have to organize in case I messed up. And then we're going to do this, call this write. So now A quick way to try to see if we can write is gonna delete this. So we're back to 1. So we can try writing phpinfo. So we could do select plus, closes in quotes, and then we do our PHP payload, PHP info, and then do a semicolon, close that, and then we're gonna close that. There we go. And I think that's it. I don't know why I put a plus here. Oh, that's for the spacing. So that looks good. I believe that's it. Yeah. So then here, right before this ends, we go into out file and where we want to write it and the file name. html rsc. We're gonna call this test php, and let's see if we did that right. Yeah, let's try this. So then from here I'm gonna all the way here. Oops. So hold shift, click where you want to end, control U, and if you get this error, even though it seems contradictory, it means it worked. So if we go now, we don't need this anymore. Test.php. We have the PHP info version, see? So we get the whole environment, and yeah, you see document root bar .html. So this is, see, that all the information we found before, and that's the file name. So so we know we can write. So what's the next thing to do? We just write a PHP malicious script. Why not? So now we do the same thing. We can't call it the same file. We can't overwrite. So we're going to call rsc. And now we could do, let's see, do PHP. We do system request. We're going to do, call it RSE, semicolon. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to close those quotes. So PHP system request, so we could do post requests, or get, but I like post, so just do both. So make sure these are correct, those are right, space, okay, into out file RSE. And I believe that should work. So let's actually close this. Oh, we got it. See? Now we do RSE 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is displaying what we wrote. RSE equals ID. There it is. We have remote code execution. So now let's work on getting a reverse shell. So we can call this curl. Oh my god, I cannot type. And then we do reverse shell plus let's see, LVMP 9001. Then we're gonna do curl the website. PHP. We do dash data dash URL encode. And then we do our payload, which is RSC bash, that's the parameter, bash dash C semicolon bash dash I and dev TCP, my IP address, core I want to connect to, and we that should be it. Forgot to close it. There we go, it's hanging. We got a reverse shell. So Now we can upgrade our shell, Python 3 -c import pty semicolon pty dot spawn bin bash control C to background the process, stty, we're going to do -a. So you could just do -a alone, or you could do this command, which is pipe to head -n1, pipe cut -d semicolons, cut semicolons -f to the 3, pipe cut -b2, and then pipe as you said to replace semicolons with a line break, and we get our rows and columns. You could also just do stty-a. See, so I just eliminated all this, and I found this online somewhere, and it worked beautifully. But yeah, you could just do, so it's the same thing, rows, columns. And why do I want to do this? It's because when I do stty to bring back our session with echo, stty raw -echo fg to bring back our process back, press enter twice. We're going to do stty rows 32 columns 130. If I don't do that, then my terminal doesn't wrap around correctly, you see? But if I do stty rows 32 columns 130, now it will. Then export term equals x term. Now we can clear the screen. So this makes it a lot easier to work with the reverse shell. So now from here we could do basic enumeration. You know, first thing I always like to try is look at config files for any passwords. You know, anything that stands out. So in our case, for example, if we look at the config file, and you know, just basic enumeration, we find this password, which is the database password. Fortunately, this password doesn't work for anything except logging into MySQL, and there's nothing on the database. But always good practice. We can look at sweet binaries, you know. But in our case, whenever we find passwords previously, I always try them, you know, with other users we have. And in our case, the other user is Ollie. And it doesn't take long to try these things. If that password doesn't work, I like to try other weak passwords, like maybe Ollie in this case, password. If that doesn't work, then I start enumerating a little bit more into the machine. Because sometimes you enumerate all this stuff, you don't find anything, and then you realize the answer was simple. So su dash to go to Ollie's home directory. We're going to paste the password, and it happens to work. And we're Ollie, and we could get our user flag there. We can try sudo -l. Doesn't work. Can't run sudo. So Ollie cannot run anything as a higher user. And we can now do some basic stuff. We could do limpys to do it for us. But in this case, I'm actually going to do two things. I want to show how I found the next step, and how you also, and then how I verified it, and how you could have also found it using this other tool called PSPY, which is a tool used to, you could just Google it, PSPY, and it'll take you to the GitHub link. But anyway, you could have used PSPY to also find it. So I'm going to call this server. And actually, before I lose my reverse shell, I'm going to drop some SSH keys, make directory.ssh, because we can write into this directory. See, single period, Ollie, user and group can write. Well, actually, user can write. Anyway, so we're going to go there. You can SSH again, and this is also easier to deal with. So I'm going to call this ID RSA, but you call it anything. You call it Ollie. And now we have two keys, a private and a public. We're going to .pub. We're going to redirect it to authorized.keys. Cat ID RSA. And we're going to copy our key, whole thing. And let's see, vi ID RSA, paste. give it the appropriate permissions. So that allows it to that only we can read write, not our group, nobody else. And now we can I'll remove this. I always like to remove it. Hostname -I. Oh, there's a Docker container running. You could tell by this IP address. It's a Docker's install. I mean, we could probably look at that with root. I believe that's where the bot, that Ollie bot, is coming from, that we interact on port 1337. Now we could do ssh-i Ollie at yes. Give it a second, and we'll have there we go. Now we have SSH access as Ollie, and now I'm gonna have to make a new one called server. And here I'm going to run my Python server, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run here. If you didn't know that you had to call that redirect the public key to the authorized keys, you could just look at the hhd config file, maybe grab I think it's .sh, and there will tell you call the authorized keys to. So authorized keys file, authorized keys. So it's on the file. But anyway, I'm going to run phpy and show you how you could have found it. I'm going to use wget. Forgot the IP address. Oh no, it's my IP address. There you go. Copy that. wget phpy64s. And it's going to take a little bit. Actually, no. Did it pretty quick. chmod plus x pspy64s, and we're gonna run it. And it's trying to run. So what that does, I'm gonna show how I found it. And couple things I like to do is I like to look at suite binaries, you know, a couple files, capabilities, but one thing I like to do is look at my groups, right? You can do groups or ID. Oh, there we go, it's running. So that's the Ollie bot. But as soon as I see what we're looking for, I'll show you. And this is one way you could have found it. How I found it is, I always like to look at my group from my user to any group I have. When I see ADM, that means I can read log. So it's always something good in case you want to find like a log, like a password, something like that. It could be Apache logs, you know, from a login or something that uses get. But anyway, and I'm gonna use the find command. So I like to use find. I always start with my user, Ollie, and it doesn't take long to do this. You can start from the user all the way to your group, even the one that's named after you. Find user Ollie. I'm gonna look at type f devno. And you can run this, and actually I'm going to ignore a couple of things. I'm going to ignore sys, because it's really very rarely, if anything, nothing there, or proc, because those are just processes that we can view with pspy or ps, and I'm going to ignore .dub. I usually don't, and I usually do manual check there anyway, but in this case there's nothing there, so I'm going to ignore it. Let me show you what happens if I don't ignore it. So if I do that, you see, get a lot of files. But if I ignore it, or .dub, and the reason why I didn't do bar, you could do bar, but at the time I was trying to look for logs, but so you could have done bar as well. And we see we don't find anything. So we just go in next in line. Now we can look at our groups, and we could do group Ollie, and that stands out. And if we look at this, now it didn't show the file, but let's see, where are you? Did you show it? Oh, it's supposed to. Maybe it's taking its time. Oh, there it is. So every 2 minutes, and it's gonna do it again soon because we're at the 1 minute mark. You know, if you were looking around, you would have found this. So this is the root UI set UID. bin bash user bin feed me. So this is how you could have found one way. This is how I found it first time. And if we look at that file, root has read-write access and executable, and Ollie has read-write access. Everything else is word readable. So we can read it, cat, and we see this is a bash script. And it just says this is weird, that's a comment. So based on our findings, we know, and it just executed it. See, so every 2 minutes it executes this script. So what can we do? I'm going to edit it, because we know root's executing it, and we can delete this. And I'm just gonna go for a quick win. Chmod set the setuid binary to bin bash, and now we wait. I think I did it right. Chmod, and we're gonna have an S here. What that allows us to do is to now run. No, sorry. Then we'll have. Oh, it already did it. Did I miss it? Oh yeah, it just did it. So now what that'll do, so not the S wouldn't have been here. The S would have been here, as you see on bin bash. So now we can spawn shell, but with -p allows us to keep our root, the privileges of the owner, because the setuid binary is set. And if we see who am I, we're the root user, and we can get our flag. So lots of fun there. Another thing I'm going to do is, because I definitely want to have easier access, I'm going to use OpenSSL to create a Etsy shadow password. You could do Etsy shadow, and we're going to delete this. Probably can't brute force our way into this, otherwise. Then we're going to paste, messed up, and then we can exit to root password, and there we go. Now we have, and the reason why I did that is because sometimes bash, if you did the setuid binary trick, your user ID will still be Ollie, but your effective user ID is root. And that, I couldn't change the password that way. That doesn't allow me to. But this way, I could still override the shadow file, which allowed me to get a little bit better access. I'm curious about the Docker process. There is. Look at that. That's the Ollie bot. I'm curious. Docker exec -ti. Just do the first 4. I think it's A1, A0. Then you do bash. String sec bash. SH. There. Okay, it doesn't have bash. So we are on the Docker container, and I want to read this Ollie bot. So what is this about? So import sys threading socket, listen on port 1337, and here it is. So it sends a stranger, and then it receives and decodes it. So what's up, and then it takes user, so that's what we send it to. Then it asks, then if is food, and then it sends it again. If otherwise, it still sends it, and then while it creates a loop, and then it asks the question, and then it sends us our credentials, and that's it. So okay, so what's on app? Nothing. Okay, so. That was I wanted to check that out. I didn't get to check that out before I forgot. So that's pretty much the machine. Hope you had fun. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and enjoy the rest of your day.